PSL has a duty of care to make sure that their product and their brand is covered appropriately.
So is this one way? Why are you compensating journalists for predictions?
The journalists are part of the game, Rob. And why I said to you, I said, Rob, the objectives of the PSL and of the media are not inconsistent.
Yeah.
And there is no predatory practices. We are not saying, this is not political parties. We are not saying cover us, we are the DA, and don't cover or cover us favorably, we are the DA, and don't cover the ANC. There is no predatory practices here. We want the same things. We want, I can challenge the journalists who are here today, and they must tell me whether, and they've already said it, that they want a competitive and exciting football in a league. Let me address myself to the press conference.
But you're not answering my question. I'm saying, why are you putting money to journalists for them to predict outcomes of games? Why are you putting money? How does that help the PSL to improve its brand?
How does it?
How does it help the PSL to improve its brand?
Let me explain to you. Let me explain to you. And you're making me now. This debacle is making the PSL sort of kind of pre-announce, as you have said. One of the things the chairman did hint that this thing is actually meant at the supporters, but the supporters in this country consume the game through the media, and therefore they will see the media play initially, which is what is happening, and from Q2 going forward, it will be the fans who are playing. He did emphatically say that this was a once-off in quarter one. Rob, journalists enter journalism awards and get money. It's not new. The PSL is not doing anything which is new on this one. Can I address myself to the press code quickly?
Yeah, but they're not. But you keep on bringing issues like, I think worldwide, locally, there's awards for journalists, there's award for sports journalists. That's for the work that they've done, the research that they've done, the work put together that they've done. It hasn't been for a once-off prediction of, I think Maritzburg will draw against this one, and then, hey, you strike it lucky and you win, which is part of the press code, which I would love you to address.
Yeah, I'd like to address that, Rob. It is said that that's what you think about our journalists, that they are somehow going to strike it lucky. I would like to think, and the PSL would like to think.
Come on, Dominic,
no, wait, Rob, you have to give me a chance. You at least have to give me a chance.
I'll give you a chance.
The predictions are based on the knowledge and the day-to-day coverage of the journalists of the different clubs. It is a knowledge-based prediction, I would like to think, and not a game of chance. It again succeeds in making the Ajax Maritzburg game to become important, because the journalists have tended to focus on the big clubs and totally ignore the other clubs on this thing. The prediction, it forces you to predict on so suddenly that game which would have been deemed unimportant is suddenly important. Can I address the press code before you move on this? Have I sufficiently answered your question?
I would like to give Mr. Moya an opportunity to address what you've just said.
Can I address the press code?
Yeah, we'll get to it. Okay. Dominic, we get into every part.
You know, Dominic, just listening to you now, my major concern, the first time I heard about the Q innovation, was the issue of consultation. I mean, I sit here as a sports editor of a publication. On my left is Spoo here. And for me to read or hear about it from the PSL, and I ask myself, where was the consultation? One, I'm a major stakeholder in that I've quite a number of journalists that report straight to me, and I would have wanted to have an input. I would not sit here and talk down on any effort that seeks to reward journalists. But I think there should have been an effort on the part of the PSL to say, okay, we have this amount of money. How can we put it as a prize for journalists? How can we reward the journalists? We would have come up with ways and means to say the best prize or the best way to go about having a competition for journalists is ABCD. But I think the issue of consultation was a little silent for me, Dominic.
Okay, so let me bring you in. You've heard what Dominic has said from a PSL perspective. Are you buying into that?
Well, not exactly, Robert. I think also it's this thing we're talking to. I recently wrote about there's been this trend of appointments within the PSL. The PSL followed suit from SAFA, where they have a position called stakeholder relations manager. And the PSL and SAFA always say that the media are stakeholders. And as Partisan is saying that one, I have quite a problem with that what stake does the media hold, in the affairs of the PSL and SAFA? Because as far as I'm concerned, our duty is to report, and we are responsible, we are answerable to our readers, listeners, and viewers as the media. So when this, now coming to what Partisan has just said, I think there was also a very big problem with consultation. Because now when, like, we find SANEF coming out saying that despite the PSL saying that there was extensive consultation, they were never consulted. SANEF is the body of editors, and they are the people who are very au fait, with the press code. And I think had the PSL approached them and told them that we've got this innovation, they would have sat down, and I think SANEF would have guided the PSL to say, maybe this is the route you should follow. Because as I've said, I think as it stands now, as it was announced, I think it exposes, journalists to it takes journalists to a very uncomfortable territory.
Mr. Mkabela, having heard what Dominic was saying right now and having addressed the issues of the codes, it almost seems like, there is no regard for that.
Look, Rob, very fortunately, Mr. Ntsele has let the cat out, because he says that this competition will ensure that journalists are directed away from the politics of the PSL to focus on what's happening in the field. At the same time, he also says that there is no intention to influence the reporting of the PSL by sports journalists. Now, he must decide which one is which. Are you trying to redirect journalists from reporting the truth about what's going on in the PSL, politics-wise, so that they can focus on the games? Because, as the professor said earlier on, the journalists obviously have vested interest in the outcomes of those games. They're no longer observers. They're no longer telling the story as they see, it unfolding, in the pitch. They now have vested interest in the outcome, to the point that, now they will even be among the fans, shouting and screaming and ululating when, whoever they've betted in their favor is now, succeeding or is scoring, things like that. So we think that it is very clear from Ntsele's own explanation that there is an attempt to influence the outcome of stories written by sports journalists. And I think that he says, for example, that journalists already predict matches in the newspapers, in radio, and on television, and all of that, which is true. But do they predict those outcomes with a view of catching money at the end, like a javelin? They don't. They predict because it's their job. They are informed as journalists. They think they are competent enough to entertain fans by giving different scenarios that might unfold in the pitch, and they don't do so to get money. The moment you put money, you are now making them to have vested interest in the outcome of the games. And that's what we want to shield our journalists from. Our journalists must report independently, based on what's unfolding in front of them, based on the information they have, not on any other interest. That's why the code says that the press shall not allow commercial, political, personal, or other non-professional considerations to influence or slant reporting. It's very clear. And he has already said that he wants to make sure that journalists are directed away from the politics of the PSL so that they focus on the games. And the reason why they have to focus on the games is because they will have vested interest. And we believe that our journalists should cover sports games. They must also cover what's happening in the PSL in the public interest.
Would you want to respond to that?
Yes, I'd like to respond to that, Rob. Let me make it very clear. The PSL should not apologize and would not apologize for ensuring that there is sufficient coverage of what happens in the 90 minutes in the game. That's what the PSL is in the business of. And when things other than the game supersede what is happening in the game, the PSL needs to address that. That's number one. Number two, this thing of vested interest. If the reporting of the journalists had a bearing or could influence the outcome of the game, I'll buy what Mr. Mkabela is saying. The journalist can write whatever he wants to write, can predict whatever he wants. He cannot influence the outcome of a game. And therefore he cannot. Can I quickly address not fair? I have said quietly by and listened, and as soon as I open my mouth, I'm having everybody raise their yes. I mean, I'll control that. It's completely unfair. I want to go to his press code. I want to go to his so to close that point, the vested interest argument does not hold and is not valid because the writing of the journalist or the reporting of the journalist cannot influence the game. He cannot. He's not a referee in the game. He does not have a stake in the game. And public perceptions, all of us go to a game wishing one outcome other than the other. And that our wishes have got zero bearing on the outcome of the game. That's one. I want to address the press code. The press code talked about, and that's why I talked about predatory practices. Where there is more than one player, I understand why the media can't be seen to be supporting. The interest of the media, the need for a competitive and an exciting game, is not inconsistent between the PSL and the media. We want the same things. Rob, your show spends a lot of time about the competitiveness and excitement of the game. I just want to say something as well so that we don't get carried away. This thing. The chairman made it very clear in the announcement that it's once only. It involves the first 8 games of Q1 of the innovation. Then this thing becomes a public participation thing, and it does not involve the media. The PSL did not choose journalists who write favorably about it. Every single one, including Dominic Ntsele, who tends to write more negatively than positively about the PSL, could enter and apply. The second thing talks about a bribe, a gift, and a conflict of interest which is likely to influence this thing. Both legally and ethically, that does not come into bearing, since the writing of the journalist cannot influence the outcome of the game. So the political, the personal, the conflict of interest, the bribe, and the gift, as per the code, actually, I wish that Mr. Mkabela had chosen better parts of the... Just give me a chance, I'm finishing. I wish that Mr. Mkabela should have chosen better parts of his own press code. He chose stuff which there are no issues, both legally and ethically, to raise his points. I seem to hear here that the gripe is that SANEF was not consulted. And you know, the PSL suffers from that all the time. I'm closing my point, Rob. And it happened with a sponsorship issue. Each time the media does not get its way into getting the PSL to toe the line, there's like a sulking behavior, which then tends to want people to criticize the PSL at all costs.
But it's a duty to cover things. Okay, let me come to you, because there is miscommunication here. I haven't heard, even from the professor, saying that it will influence the outcome of the game. It has to do with the reporting of the game and the interest. Mr. Mkabela.
That's a very important point, Rob, because what Ntsele and the PSL want to do, they want to have the cake and eat it. They protect the integrity of the game, in that the journalists will never influence the outcome of the game. But they don't want to protect the integrity of the journalist. Journalists will be influenced in their writing. They may not be able to influence the outcome of the game, but the writing of the journalists will be influenced. And in that once you influence the outcome or the writing of the journalist, then you're actually tampering with what the audience receive. You are tampering with what the readers should receive. You are tampering with the objectivity of that information that is imparted to the audience. So Ntsele may be right to say journalists won't influence the outcome of the games, but this competition will influence the kind of journalism that they churn out. So we think we have to protect our profession. You may well protect it in your space. It's okay. But we want to protect our own integrity. We want to protect the integrity of the information that we impart to the public, to the sports fans, to everybody else out there who read, who listen to radio stations, who watch TV stations, who, all of that, who read websites and things like that. But I want to address, he says something very insulting. He says journalists are involved in what he calls a sulking behavior. I want to respond by quoting from the statement issued by the chairman of the PSL, Mr. Ivan Kos. He said in that press conference, the PSL has extensively consulted and inquired if this competition involving journalists that cover its space raises any ethical issues. We are satisfied that just like journalism awards recognize and reward journalists without compromising the integrity of the profession, this competition does not compromise the ethics and integrity of the journalists covering the PSL Premiership. I don't know who are these journalists that Mr. Koza and Mr. Ntsele consulted.
Yeah.
Who? Because we.
Do you have names of people that?
Yeah, Rob. Okay.
How far was this consultation process?
It was far and wide. I've got. This is a professional body, so I can show you the legal opinion. We consulted both legally, and we consulted individuals. Remember,
but who was consulted from a journalistic perspective?
We contacted several journalists and higher up journalists to ask them if this would raise ethical issues. Remember, we're an organization which has to deal with leaks all the time. If we took that to SANEF, people would have read about this before we even announced it. So we consulted specific journalists and asked them questions specifically pertaining to the fact that if we were to do that, and the answer we got was they would have, which Mr. Mkabela is wrongly quoting, they would have a vested interest if they could influence the outcome. Seeing that they cannot influence the outcome, plus you are not excluding any journalist. You cannot choose the journalist you like. Therefore, there are no ethical issues.
But who was consulted?
Yeah,
that's what we asked.
Before, I should not bring people's names into disrepute. Now SANEF has made a statement, and you want me to now sit here and say we consulted journalist A and journalist B.
Yeah, but I mean, if they fall under SANEF, and SANEF does put the squeeze on them, and nobody submits these forms to enter the competition, then you don't have a competition.
But it's fine.
So we're just saying that as the PSL, are you not willing to hear what SANEF are saying? As custodians, as far as journalism is concerned, to what they're saying. You're saying regardless of what you say, we will go ahead. School, go ahead.
No, Robert, one thing, I wanted to say that I was not consulted.
Well, the tears.
And two, there's also a question that I would like to pose to Mr. Ntsele. As he said earlier on that they find that journalists, as journalists, we concentrate more on the politics of the game more than what is happening on the field of play, and this was like another innovation to try and put the focus on the field of play, or the standard, or whatever was dished out on the week in and week out. Does the timing of this innovation has anything to do with the fact that this is an elective year, the AGM that is coming up in November?
No, it's got nothing to do with that. You remember the PSL has just renegotiated its contracts. When you do that, you go back. And if you remember how the chairman opened the press conference, he said time and time again that you cannot dry today's washing with yesterday's sun. Therefore, you have to go back and look at the reasons why you were successful, and look at how you can enhance the reasons you were successful, and you have to look back at the things which you did wrongly and do that. The dwindling crowds in games are as much a concern to the PSL as it is to you, because you write about it day in and day out. This innovation, for example, you know the league takes, every club plays 30 games before, and you have seen that the focus on the league is on its last 7-8 games. What this thing has done is that it has provided an excitement which made game one. In the history of the PSL, there were 25 goals scored in game one. The 8 fixtures of game one, there were 25 goals scored.
I think with all due respect, Mr. Ntsele, we're deviating. He asked about the elective year.
It has nothing to do with the elective year. I'm giving him a context, Rob, so that I don't answer him yes and no as if I'm being evasive.
No, but the context drives us away from the focal point of what we're trying to get at.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the elective year.
All right, I need to take a break. Coming back, we'll include your calls. Check out what's happening on Twitter, email, and Facebook.
Get awesome, fast, reliable internet at home, plus 5 gigs of data, a free modem, and free internet installation for just 169 Rand per month when you sign.